Hi, this is Mika. Welcome to League Taken. And here at League Taken, I talk about all things witchy, craft related, law of attraction, manifesting, esoteric, and everything else in between. So today I want to talk about deciphering the voices of intuition and the voices of fear. Because those are two different things. Fear will lead you in one direction, and your intuition ultimately is going to lead you in a direction that's good for you. Fear, not so much. So, the best way to go into this topic, the easiest way for me to explain this topic is to give a story. So, many moons ago, no, actually it was back in 2004, I was still living in New Jersey. It was January 2004, and I had an opportunity to go to Orlando, Florida with my, at the time, boyfriend. So he was doing some traveling for work, so basically he flew me out. So we would do stuff like that. So I'm in this relationship. We had only been together for maybe almost a year up until that point, but anyhow, so we're together. We're having a nice little breakfast out at this nice hotel in Orlando, nice resort hotel, and it's just me and him. It's not the kids. It was just a little weekend getaway. So I'm sitting there. It's a lull in a conversation. It gets, as you eat and it gets quiet. Beautiful day. And all I kept thinking is, oh my God, it's so beautiful here. Because back in New Jersey, I had left. It was cold. It was gray. It wasn't a good time. So I'm sitting out. I could feel the sun on me. And it was like, it felt almost spiritual. The whole situation. Eating the good food. I had fresh fruit. The air, and it wasn't really about the guy. It was just my experience, my sensory attention, if that's the right phrasing. All my senses were very peaked and ready. Sound, sight, hearing, taste, all of that. So I was primed and ready for what was about to happen, which is a voice came to me in that moment, and it was a fairly quiet voice, and I hadn't been talking. I wasn't really thinking anything. I was just feeling and experiencing in that moment. And the voice said, "You're going to move here. He won't be with you." So I didn't say anything to him because that was such a random thought at the time, because it didn't make any sense. What, we're together. Why wouldn't I move here with him? We were on good terms. There was no reason for me to be thinking like this. So what I did was I chose to listen to that voice, and that voice guided me to Florida. Now, what I did was I immediately started looking for an opportunity within my company to transfer, and the opportunity came a few months later. I would say more than a few. I would say more than 7-8 months later, the opportunity finally came. I just kept applying. Every couple months I would apply. So this all culminated into it being a year that I was there, a year and a month later from that breakfast, sitting outside this beautiful resort that I would actually be living in Florida. And I did move to Florida, and I did not move with the boyfriend. So the voice was correct. And trust me, it wasn't a self-fulfilling prophecy. It wasn't my intuition. Oh, I knew that this guy was going to be this way, and I knew that would happen. It was nothing about him. It was about me and my experience. So, early example of intuition versus fear. Fear will have you focusing on, if I had been the type of person at that time focusing on fear, I would be thinking about, oh, I would have made it about him in a relationship when it had nothing. This was some higher level divine led stuff going on. He never entered the stratosphere. He just happened to be there. His role had been fulfilled. His role was to get me to Orlando, and that was his role. So during the process of moving or getting ready to move, the fear voices were prevalent. That's when I had to learn. Now that I'm making this huge move based on, this small little voice that I heard in my head, as clear as a bell. It was clear, crisp and clear, but And it hadn't come back anymore after that, not in that profound way. It's not like it was coming back saying, yeah, girl, keep going, you're doing the right thing. No, I didn't get that voice anymore. So I was relying on just trusting my instinct, and that I made the right decision the first time by putting in a job transfer. So once I got the opportunity to actually move, the transfer went through. I was terrified because the reality of it was, oh shoot, I'm moving. So one way that I figured out how to decipher, and this is after the fact while I was going through it, no, I didn't know this, but is when fear is speaking to you, it's typically in a negative. And my intuition, when that voice, my higher self, is talking to me, it's a softer voice, and it's usually speaking in a positive. It's giving a direction versus don't, can't, won't, not. You don't. That's usually not part of the dialogue that I'm hearing, or the instructions, or the message. So, or what if? This is one of the big deals in my life, my adult life, that I figured out, is if you are on a loop of what if, or what if this happens, oh shoot, and then this, what if, and then you're going down this what if role, that is you're playing out fear. Sometimes that's helpful to kind of decipher, best worst case scenarios. But if you're only focused on worst case scenarios, you don't want to be in that loop. You're in a loop and you need to jump out of it, because nothing productive is happening. You're just spinning bad stuff, And I had begun to do that, by the way. That's where I'm going with this. And that voice is louder. It's muddled. It's not as soft. And you don't, as opposed to just feeling excited, or hopeful, or even challenged, you just feel dread and despair and anxiety. Another way to distinguish the two voices. So I move, despite the voices, despite the fear, despite being holed up in my room. For the later part, not a lot of people knew that whenever I was home, I was in my bedroom with my kids. We watched a lot of SpongeBob and Nickelodeon, all from my bedroom, on my bed. We took dinners in the bed. They were little, they didn't realize it, but yeah, mommy was going through some serious fear. I was a single mom at that point. I was no longer with my first husband, so I was making all the decisions alone. So the thing about when things are right for you is when you make a decision, because I made the decision to put the job transfer and to keep looking and to stay on it, and it came out. So I had fears about my children, this was something in my head the whole time, but when it became real, those fears rose to the surface. So it's not like I hadn't thought about it, but now I was thinking from an irrational point of view. So I would hear the voice of, well, where are your kids going to go when you go to work? Well, I knew my daughter would go to school, but what about in the summertime? You don't know anybody there. You don't know, a facility, daycare. I was thinking all kinds of crazy stuff. So that was like a pressing fear. And I would hear, the little doubts and fears coming in my head on a regular basis before I went to bed when I woke up in the morning, So when things are right, they're right. So my sister, who's 9 years younger than me, decided that she let me know, hey, can I come with you to Florida? And I was like, I hadn't thought of that. I was going to do this all by myself. And I said, okay. And she came with me. And then I had a built-in babysitter in those early few weeks, and I needed that. She didn't have a job or anything, so she was there. She would eventually have to work and get on her own, and she did, but she was very helpful to me. And that once that happened, I could really release a little bit more, and those voices went away because it was no longer grounded in reality and of what was really occurring. And that's the other thing about fear, distinguishing it. It's usually not grounded in the reality and the rational of what's really happening. So there was no I just needed a plan. If I was, get out of my own way and silence those voices, I would have been able to plan a little bit better instead of actually I was planning, but I would have been able to rely more on my plans, on the concrete things that I had, as opposed to the constant what if horrible scenarios that I had been playing out in my mind, and allowing those voices to just grow louder and louder to the point that it, I was, like I said, holed up in my bedroom on most days when I got home from work, and on the weekends with the kids, which was super unproductive. I could have been spending time with people, and anyway. Listen to the intuition, not the fear, guys. Don't let it control you. So again, I just want to reiterate, the thing is, once I got there, not reiterate, I want to introduce this other piece of it. Once I got there, it wasn't smooth. It wasn't great. It took me a while to adjust to living there because it was all new. I didn't know anybody. As I said, I was meeting people where people were friendly. I didn't have anything negative happen to substantiate the fear or the anxiety that I was really feeling, other than I was letting the fear have a bigger voice in my head, and I was beginning to feed into it and listen to it and let the voice get louder. So I speak from experience when I talk about separating the two voices. So, okay. I eventually, I realized I hadn't been sleeping well. I wasn't performing well at my new position, at my new, location in Florida. I didn't do very well at first. I was trying, but it wasn't working out, and it didn't feel right anymore. So I want to say I was there for about 7-8 months or so. I went to a therapist with the anxiety, and I'm just thinking maybe I need sleeping pills because I'm not sleeping very well. So thank goodness I got the therapist that I did, because she did not give me sleeping pills or any prescription. She just talked to me, and she's the one who really was helpful in me learning how to order my thoughts and order just my way of processing, or to process emotion and thoughts, and then compare them, put those up to what's really happening versus what you feel or what you think might happen, and sort of ordering all of that so you can make better informed decisions for yourself and at the time for my kids and for my family. So with her guidance, that set me off, and I was good. I was good at that point, and it coincided. As I was seeing her, I started actually dating my husband at that point. I had met him immediately when I first got to my job, but we actually started dating at that point. So it worked out because I was able to make a good decision about dating him and introducing this person into our lives. So we're still married, and it worked out. Anyway, getting help sometimes, because if you're struggling with making understanding the differences between your gut and then your anxiety and your fear, you might need help with ordering your thoughts, and that's how I like to see it, because it's not that they're giving you something that's going to make you all better. They can give you a new way of viewing things and a new way of processing, so that there's you don't have any more question on which is which. You know yourself a little bit more, because you get to examine yourself a little bit more when you're in therapy. So that's where you get to learn how to do that, so then you know what feels your gut instinct versus a reaction of fear. You begin to learn how to decipher that. So all this to say, the best thing I could have did was listening to that voice. I am not kidding you. There was nothing else to back up that voice. All I had was that one message, and I did everything based on that one message. I did not hear anything else, another voice, another interaction, or anything like that to guide me. All I had was just the raw fear to, quiet and to learn to ignore, or to just put to rest. That's what I had up at that those months to a year to actually move. That's what I was dealing with. So unfortunately, I'm very, very familiar with that. So I know when that fear is coming in, and those voices and those thoughts that pop in your head, I know how to distinguish that very well. But I've sat and I've thought about what would life have been like if I had did the opposite, because there were, prior to then, as a younger woman, I had did the opposite of when I was given a message, and I realized, looking back, this had already happened, and where instead of, okay, so fear would say, don't do this, or you can't do that, or you shouldn't do this, where the voice I would hear would say, go here, do this. Are you listening to her? That sort of thing. Or are you hearing him? Look over there. It's more of a directive, directions, instructions, intention, as opposed to don't do, if, or starting with the if or what if or something like that. It's not muddled. It's a clear messaging. That's how I know that's my gut. That's my instinct. And, I try to share that as much as I can. That's honestly, this story is what I had in mind when I initially started the blog over at leaptaken.wordpress.com. leaptaken.wordpress.com. Yes, this is what I had in mind of just sharing this sort of stuff. And if you read my blog posts, I've expanded it. It's more of lifestyle content, but this is initially what I talk about, and then law of attraction, manifesting, because there's a piece to all of that where this would be a story I could frame around law of attraction and manifesting. But the meat of it, because there's steps, as we all know, when you're trying to do big life things, there's steps to it, where it's not just, oh well, I just thought this, and next thing you know, all these things happen. No, there was the stuff in between. The stuff in between was, I listened to the voice. I marveled that a voice came to me so clear like that. I don't think it's ever come to me that clear before. At that breakfast, sitting there with the ex-boyfriend at that hotel, and remembering before, those times, and comparing it in my mind. I thought about this on a plane ride home. I thought about this when I got home. I did tell someone. I told my grandmother at the time about this. And I wasn't calling myself a witch. I didn't practice witchcraft at that time or anything like that. But it stayed with me because it was like, it was a supernatural experience. So it really resonated with me, and I didn't forget it. And for me, I felt like, why not? You felt a stirring in you to go there. You felt it. It was real in my head. I'm saying this to myself. In your heart, you felt right to be there. So go ahead, and that's what fueled me to go ahead and put in the applications for the job transfers that were in Florida. So yeah, that's pretty much that whole story of just understanding, of really listening to it. Now, I know everybody is not going to have an experience maybe where something's so drastic or your voice is so loud, because usually I think it's more of a whisper. I think it's just that quiet thought that pops in. A lot of us have gotten into the negative habit of dismissing it. We might even say something to a friend. Yeah, something said I should do this, but anyway, I didn't do it. But and you go on with the rest of the story and highlight all the things that went wrong. When it was like, whoa, back up. That something, that voice, that was the part of you that's you. Remember, we're magic, guys. The magic's in us. And I know we talk about reaching out. I talk about ancestor reverence and things like that, but it starts here. I have the ability to manipulate energy, starting with just thoughts. That's where it begins. So I can create in my mind. If I have those capabilities, that's magic. And then I just make it happen outside of myself and make it, my reality. I manifest it into reality, and then I actually experience it in real time. So if we can do all of that, you can think of a business. I thought of this channel. I thought of the content. It was in my head first, and now I'm talking, and now you're watching it, and it's done. It's in reality. It's happening. That's how it works. That's the magic. So if we can do all those sort of things, your intuition is there. There's that magical part of yourself. That's who she is. She's in me, I'm her, we're one. We're separate and together all at the same time. and I'm having fun with the subject, but hopefully you follow where I'm going with this. You have to be aligned with your intuition, with your gut instinct, your higher self. All of those are really meaning the same thing. They guide you. Also, they keep you from wasting time and energy, especially when it comes to practicing magic. You have to be in tune with that part of yourself so that you are doing what is innately right for you, or what you should be connecting to. This will keep you from wasting time searching for a specific spirit or deity that you think you need to be connected to when you feel like you're called to it. But if you're paying attention to the instinct, to the intuition, and listening to the whispers, just that small voice that you keep pushing down because it doesn't fit, your rational part of your mind. So you keep pushing that down because you don't want to hear that. We have to elevate that and just let it guide us. I think a lot of us will have much more simpler lives. It doesn't mean you're going to be a millionaire, you're going to be rich and everything is perfect. That's not, or you'll never get sick. Nothing bad will ever happen, because there's other energies at play. Instead, what it means is maybe you won't have so much conflict and so much anxiety and strife if we just give into the voice a little bit. And one more thing, I talked about going to therapy, and I said the voice didn't come, that intuitive voice wasn't so clear before. It wasn't as crisp as it had been that day at breakfast, but it was there enough to even tell me to go. It was like just something popped in my head. I could have easily ignored it because it was just a fleeting type of thought, but I knew to call a therapist and to follow up on it, and I did. It was the best thing I could have done. It helped me tremendously, and after that experience, I realized what I had begun to realize now what was fully happening. Again, I didn't have all the language and all the words of law of attraction, manifesting. I didn't understand intuitive voice and all that, but I understood the situation without assigning everything that was happening a label. And I realized, okay, I'm doing this. I'm making this happen because, I'm in tune with myself. I'm listening to myself. I'm listening to, that voice. That's what I was saying. I'm listening to that voice, and everything else started making sense. And then there's a whole host of other things that would happen after that because I listened and I didn't let the other part of myself, I guess your lower vibrating self, the fear piece, I didn't let that voice dictate my moves, my actions. I got a handle on it. That was a very knowledgeable experience on learning how to do that. And of course, I'm human, and over the years, I have had things that have happened where I've kind of allowed the lower vibrating self to come in again and take over, the worry and all that sort of stuff. And that voice starts to make too much noise in your head, and you're not thinking rationally anymore. Yeah, come on, who hasn't, right? Circumstances can dictate because you're in a low vibrational state. So now it's easy for that to happen, for that voice to take over. But thank goodness that hard won life skill back in 2005, between 2004 and 5, of me actually moving and me actually getting there, I learned, and I'm able to now recognize, hey, this is going on too far. That's not my gut talking. That's a low vibrational piece of me talking, and I need to silence that because it's not guiding me, to my greater good. So I hope this is helpful to you. I hope this resonated with you. If you're watching this video, leave a comment, by the way, if you have a little something as well to add to this. If you've struggled with trying to decipher which one, your gut versus fear, which one is leading you, I'd love to see your comments and read your comments as well. And thank you for watching. Please like the video if you've enjoyed the content, and go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, please. And if you have, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, bye.